Right. This is Andy McLaughlin from Wisher Guitar Lessons, sitting in Glasgow with Tristan Mackay. How are you doing, Tristan?
I'm good, thank you, mate. Yeah, very good.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Glasgow.
Thank you very much.
So could we just start off maybe giving a bit of history on yourself? The past few years have been very busy for you. What's been happening?
Well, I started busking in 2006, so that's not such recent history, but I quit my job, started busking. I just wanted to get my music out there. I did that for about 4 years. And I was picked up by a guy who used to do a lot of Gary Moore stuff and John Martin records in the 70s, which I love. And we kind of started working on some demos together, and then eventually I managed to get the money together to make an album with him. And that came out in February of last year and did pretty well. I think it went to #1 in the British Blues charts. And since then I've just been touring. I feel like all I've done is tour. With lots of amazing people. So we're here tonight, I'm touring with Robben Ford. Finished a tour with Eric Johnson. So I'm getting some guitar lessons myself, I have to say, on a nightly basis, it's really fun.
Excellent. So obviously when you've kind of a paraphrase sort of going from busking to releasing this album, how did you end up getting in touch with the producer John Martin, and how did that come together?
One of his assistants just walked past me in the street and picked up one of my demos and emailed me and said, would you like to come and see the studio? So I went, it's in the middle of nowhere, it's in the middle of South Wales, and I went down and had a look at the studio and it was amazing. It took a long time to get it made because the albums are expensive and I didn't have a label. But I formed my own label with some investors and money that I'd saved, and we got cracking. And thankfully, due to Martin, his producer's contacts, we got some amazing players on the album and got it made.
Excellent.
As I say, it did really well. So it's kind of opened lots of new doors for me, and it's been a brilliant year since it came out.
Yeah, and when you started doing this sort of the busking, I mean, I know you were heavily sort of busking constantly.
Yeah, like 4 times a week. Yeah.
So I mean, when you were doing that, did you always have in mind that we make an album? And
it just seemed to, I wanted to get a record deal. That was my kind of thing, and it just seemed to me that it was a great way of getting publicity. Like people, I did all the open mic nights and stuff in Leeds, and it was playing to a man and his dog, and I thought this is never going to get me, literally going to get me nowhere. I'd be better off, I don't know, organising my own gigs, which I did a bit. And busking, and on a Saturday afternoon I'd play to tens of thousands of people, and you get big crowds and they buy your demos, and with that money you can do other things, so it just made a lot of sense as a way to promote myself basically, and it took a little bit longer than I would have liked, but in the end it worked.
Yeah, excellent. So I mean, obviously lots of kind of guitar students and just musicians in general are writing their own music, and I mean, I know a lot of guys, when you said you were playing to a man and his dog, a lot of guys just seem to do that for years on end. Do you think
well, I mean, it depends what you're after. I mean, if you just want to experience gigging, then I guess any kind of live performance is good experience. But I guess I've always just been shamefully ambitious about wanting to play to more and more people and can actually get my music into their hands. And in that sense, playing to 5 people is not terribly efficient. You tend to get paid nothing. You turn up, you might get a beer if you're lucky. And it just didn't seem the way to me to make great strides forward in the music industry. So, but everyone's got their own way. I mean, I'm not saying it's not worth doing, because lots of open mic nights are brilliant. But
what I was really meaning with that then was the fact that a lot of people in the same position as yourself, they want to make the album and get their music out to lots of people, but it seems like you're always, like you said, shamefully ambitious. You're changing the kind of model in a sense so that you can...
Well, I think from when I started in 2006 to now, I've witnessed the whole shift of everything that's happened. I mean, I had the classic meetings with big labels, and you could just see that they were not going to sign someone who wanted to play solos in the middle of stuff, And so how did you get the music made, how did you get it out there was just a real struggle. But since I started, you've seen like the rise of YouTube and Facebook as a way of getting music into people's hands, and then I've just done a big Kickstarter campaign, which is a new way of funding stuff. If you've got a small functional fan base, you can make money to make records. So it's never been a better time to be an independent musician, but you do have to have a little bit of a business brain on as well as a musical one. That means you can make the money to make stuff happen. I mean, there are a lot of idealistic people out there, and all credit to them, who won't busk or won't try and actually make money out of their music. But how do you then put food on your table? How do you then get an album made? Because studios are expensive, etc., etc. So it just worked for me. But I think it's a really good time if you want to get stuff done. It's really easy to spread your music around now.
Excellent. And talking about then obviously ways of making income from it, you've licensed music to TV. I know you had your track The Wayne and Me was on.
Yes, and that was actually before I got a deal. I mean, at the moment I'm not in a publishing deal, so it's all ad hoc, as it comes in. But yeah, I mean, that was another bit of, I don't even know how that happened. Like someone emailed me and said, look, I'm the editor for Skins, can we use this track? Yeah, okay. mean, I didn't make much money from it, but it was great because it went on the DVD, which went out all over the world. So I started getting emails from Australia, people saying, I love this song, who are you? That's when I started to realise that you just need to get stuff out there, you know, get it heard.
Of course.
Because the radio remit now is so narrow.
Yeah.
I mean, I've pitched 3 singles to Radio 2. It's very difficult to get stuff airplayed on mainstream radio. So these new internet ways of doing it are really cool.
What about as well? You also had a track that was for the duty free?
Yeah, so I did some gigs for a company called World Duty Free, who run the duty free shops in loads of airports in the UK, and they were having people come and play in the shop. You know, it sounds really weird, but actually it was quite cool. And then they went on to use one of my tracks as in their advert. So I was getting people texting me from airports saying, "I just heard you in Gatwick." It's really weird. Another song I recorded in my bedroom. This is before my album even came out, so it was cool.
So is that an avenue then that you would suggest for?
I think, I think the difficulty actually is with all these things. If you get these one-off things, and don't tend to be terribly large amounts of money, is how do you make the money in between touring or in between getting these little breaks? And you know, whether it be through teaching or busking or doing gigs in your local pub, whatever it is, if you can make it through music, all the better. But you do need something you can fall back on when you're not, you know, because those things come on once every 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, particularly in the early days, you get very little of those breaks. You can't wait around for those. You've got to keep going, keep motoring on, I think.
Excellent. And so you were mentioning earlier on, you're playing tonight with Robben Ford.
Yeah.
You've been touring with Eric Johnson, and obviously you're laughing at that. How does that feel?
Well, it's amazing. I really fought to get on this tour with Robben because you know, he's, like many people, one of my favourite guitarists in the world. For lots of reasons, I'm sure everyone watching this already knows. So it's a great honour to be on tour with him and chatting with him and watching him play every night and seeing that he is every bit as good as you feel. You know, so it's nice. It's really nice.
Yeah, excellent. And I mean, obviously, then when you're out there, you're touring, you're doing all this. Is this where you seen yourself a couple of years ago, being doing this now?
It's what I wanted to do, but it's happened very organically. But I'm really delighted that it's happening now. Yeah. You know, I mean, Eric came out and jammed with me at the last gig of the tour, which was amazing and terrifying and cool. You know, you can learn a lot from these guys, not just from how they play, but how they operate on the road, and because it's not always easy. And just seeing how they live and how they look after themselves and get themselves in condition for shows, which is a challenge when you're driving 5 hours somewhere. How do you get on stage and still be not really annoyed and angry and tired? You know, you've got to get on stage in a good mood. And watching how they do that is really what I'm learning at the moment, I think. Because, you know, trying to learn. I was saying to Robben yesterday, like, watching his hands and watching him play and trying to go back, you know, the next day get up and copy it or take something from it, it's just too, you know, you're speaking a different language to most of us. Yeah. So it's just impossible, but you get little bits.
Excellent. I mean, so what's your plans for the future then?
Well, I've got this tour with Robben, and then I'm doing some gigs with Joe Shaw Taylor in London, and then there's various bits and pieces, doing some of my own gigs, and then I'm back in the studio in May with the same team who made the first album, doing my next album, Warren Wood, which I'm really excited about. Pete, get to the box office, Pete. Yeah, so I'm going to do that album, and then we'll see where that goes. But I'm really excited because I've toured so much the last year. I've met a lot of new people. I think if we make a good album, it'll maybe get me up to another level.
Yeah, and obviously that's then financed with the Kickstarter company.
Yeah. Because there's again another great way of, if you've got enough people, you know, we've done it we've raised £11,500 now with 210 people backing it.
How many days is that?
In about 3 weeks.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I go into the next album with that money in hand. I'll probably take a bit of money from my investors and a bit of my own money as well. And we'll get it made, but it'll be a much stronger position than when we made the first album, which took 2 years to keep getting the money in to finish and all that stuff. So yeah, it's cool.
So what's the sort of ETA on it?
I think it'll be out February of next year.
February of
next year. Around roughly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So where can the viewers find out more information about Tristan Mackay?
You can go to Facebook, Tristan Mackay, or you can go to my website, which is tristanmackay.com. Check it out and have a listen and see if it's for you.
Excellent.
Cool. Thanks, man. Nice to meet you. Thanks very much. Cheers, man. Thank you.